Okay, we're back. We are back. And first and foremost, I'm in a different environment. I'm closer to the Philly airport because I'm headed to Los Angeles tomorrow. Philly Steak Show, a lot of Eagles news, oddly enough, because it seems like the offseason isn't even started yet. And we already have some coaching news. We have some drama popping off on Twitter. So I'll let you take it away, Steve, and we can chat it up and have a good show before it's wheels up. I think you're muted. You're muted. I got you. You're muted, Steve.
I muted myself. I did. Yeah. Well, it muted when I unmuted after the intro, whatever. Muted.
You're getting used to the technology here.
I am getting very used to the technology. I guess I'm just excited to be back on the show. I think the Super Bowl sting is fading. Well, and then I saw that Adam Schefter's tweet yesterday that the field was indeed overwatered. So that kind of put me back into a little bit of spiral. But the offseason, the press is on. We got the combine tomorrow, coaching changes. This is what happens when you get this as far as the Eagles did, much like the Phillies. It's your offseason gets a little bit shortened. It's tough when your two favorite teams lose a championship, but I digress. Big first thing, though, is the Sean Desai. So got a new coach and defensive coordinator, and you kind of were talking about him a bit in the group chat. So I think, a lot of viewers certainly are probably not privy to like what he's all about. And so give us some insight.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to lie. I'm not super familiar with the guy, but he had some success with the Chicago Bears. He coached their defense as the defensive coordinator in 2021 when Robert Quinn had the 18 sack season. He quickly fell off. And I mean, there's no real evidence to say Desai was the reason he had 18 sacks or whatever the case is, but he came from a defensive backs background. He was actually their D-backs coach prior to that, or safeties or something. I know it was defensive backs. I looked it up a little bit, but to be honest, I'm never really too concerned about that. All I'm concerned with is how he fits in with the Eagles staff and what they want to do. And does he make the right calls and adjustments when it comes down to it? And they didn't get a guy that's super experienced in big moments or anything like that, but they got a guy that's known around the league as kind of an up and coming mind, a blossoming football kind of just mind conceptualist, whatever you want to call him. But he's apparently, being talked about in many circles. And he was the assistant head coach to Pete Carroll last year in Seattle, as well as a defensive assistant or whatever it is. He wasn't the defensive coordinator, but he was, a guy that was heavily involved there. And obviously being the assistant head coach gives him more responsibility, more leadership and all of that. And the Seattle Seahawks were a surprisingly really good team last year, and a lot had to do with their young cornerbacks and their young secondary and that defense. So Sean Desai has had his hand in the pot quite a bit in terms of maybe recently more relative success. And I think that's what the Eagles saw, and they wanted to take a shot on him after they did have a pretty extensive interviewing process with some college coaches, with internal. So they did their homework, and I'm glad they landed on the guy they landed on, because I think that of all the candidates, he probably gives you a little bit of the most of the experience in the NFL with that young, new kind of evolving mind that is so coveted in the NFL. So I think for a late hire, I think Sean Desai was a good guy to land on, and we'll see what he does.
Yeah, and I think when you have someone, younger with some experience coming in, we can, the Eagles can still kind of stick to things that they do well. I think, obviously the criticism, again, it's not, not making a bunch of adjustments, but adjustments or not, there's a lot of really good talent on this team. I know we talked about it a few weeks ago. It's like there's a big opportunity here to, kind of build the defense the way you want. You have some really good core pieces. So it's adding additional guys that we don't necessarily need to come in to be superstars, but have some guys come in and, what do we want our linebackers to do? Do we want our safeties coming up and blitzing more? Things like that necessarily we didn't do the past 2 years with more of a kind of a shell defense and not as many adjustments. So I think it's going to be a really exciting time. And CJ Gardner-Johnson is deleted tweet with said what went wrong in the second half of the Super Bowl, and he said, "You ain't put us in positions to make plays." So he deleted the tweet, but
yeah.
I mean, I think that's I don't think you have to be an X's and O's guys to kind of probably agree with that sentiment. And I saw you were tweeting earlier, kind of talking like we're not going to understand the X's and O's, and what does what does the cornerback need to do when this guy's pulling out and all that. So we're not going to understand that. But I just think that what we do understand though is that when things aren't working, maybe it is time to try something different. And much easier said than done, but it's hard to. The other team's making adjustments too, and that's not always stuff that's visible to the eye. So I think it's going to be a good kind of change of pace, and maybe we get a little more aggression and we just get something different.
Yeah, I think CJ was right about what he said. I don't think it was just one game for Jonathan Gannon. We really didn't stop quarterbacks that were worth anything for the last 2 years now. Any quarterback with some sort of talent, veteran experience. You got even Derek Carr, Dak Prescott, those guys. And then, Goff played well against us early in the season. Rodgers, obviously, this year. Those were two guys this year. But even dating back to last season, the 2021 season, I mean, Jalen Hurts first year, Sirianni first year, all that. And we just couldn't stop any quarterback that had any sort of talent.
Yeah.
Any of the guys, they got smoked by Herbert. They got smoked by Carr. They got smoked by Prescott. I mean, those are good veteran quarterbacks in the NFL, but to not have your day against any of them is telling. And then again, this year, a couple guys that were decent, couple guys that were greats, whatever. And then even like last year, we played Brady, played Mahomes again last year. You can't just continue to settle for a guy that has no answer for a veteran quarterback. You got to mix it up. You got to have your day where you confuse a veteran. Like that's really coming of age as a coach. And I think that's what CJ was more so, that's kind of what he was saying is, this guy just didn't have the adjustments or the answers for those kind of quarterbacks. And the Super Bowl was really a culmination or kind of just a summary of what all transpired there. So hopefully we get more talent at the coaching position to make those calls.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's going to be I think the coaching staff needs to take that leap this year. We have the talent in place, and a lot of this playoff run, Super Bowl, leading up to the Super Bowl, it was talent just dominating.
Yeah,
there wasn't a lot of decisions needed to be made until the Super Bowl.
Right.
So, or even games this season, really, a lot of games were, we're just going to run all over. I mean, we obviously we're putting together the game plans and they're executing at a high level, but not a lot of adjustments needed to be made when you're smoking teams. You're running for 200 yards.
The team exactly
basically just has to pass at this point.
Right.
So that's what I'm really looking forward to.
There has to be an answer for when things don't go that way, or things are a tighter game and you're playing against a better team, because eventually to win the Super Bowl, you're going to have to beat a better quarterback or a better team, and things aren't going to go exactly how you think. And if you don't have the answers for that, if you don't have the experience for that, if you don't have the mental wherewithal for that, then you're going to lose time and time again in the same spot or even sooner. So that's kind of what we have to, that's what we're going to be judged off this year is decision-making and wins in those huge games. And if we can get back, man, there's no question about this team, but it's tough. It's tough. So we'll see.
Yeah. And with that in mind, I got a new offensive coordinator, even though someone in house, Brian Johnson, but I like the fact that
God, I love it.
Yeah, and I love the fact
I
that
love it.
Nick Sirianni is basically says, he's echoed that the offensive coordinator is still going to call the plays, and I think that gives him time to, continue to focus on the in-game adjustments, which is something that, was his first year in 2021. But that was something he struggled with. I think he improved a bit this year, but again, like we said, wasn't really put in these high pressure situations where we need to make the decisions. And 4th and 1s this year were very obvious calls based on Jalen Hurts' ability to squat 600 pounds. So that took a lot of decision making out of that. So, yeah, I mean, it's going to be a new look offense. And, the first thing that kind of has stood out so far this offseason is that the Miles Sanders, I saw a report from Derek Gunn, another insider, a Fox NFL analyst as well, saying they're probably not bringing Miles Sanders back. They just don't see him paying that money. So what do you think that this means for the draft? I mean, Kenny Gainwell, he's going to be getting the ball next year, but what are you thinking that they're going to do for running back now that that's probably the reality, in which we talked about, kind of figured that's going to be the case, but.
So the market for running backs it's going to be an interesting market.
Yeah.
And I don't think Miles Sanders is completely ruled out quite yet.
Mm-hmm.
But I wouldn't be surprised if the Eagles want to go a different direction, whether that's drafting a guy or signing someone else that might be an upgrade. I'm very, very interested to see how much they're willing to put into the position itself.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the report that leaked about Kenny Gainwell going into the season, they're counting on him more. I think that tells you something, but it doesn't tell you everything.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll tell you what, they're not going to tip their hand. They're not going to say, yeah, we're looking for a running back. So, of course, there's going to be reports Kenny Gainwell's in line for a big year and this and that, because you don't want to tip your hand and tell teams what you're looking for. That could affect draft. That could affect free agency. So you never know. There's a big crop of guys out there that are free agents, including Josh Jacobs. I believe Dalvin Cook is available. I've seen people tweeting about that.
Oh, we wanted him so bad. When our last show before we got back to this, we wanted him so badly, and we got Sidney Jones instead because they jumped in front of us.
Yeah. I did, and I'm not saying they're going to home run swing on one of those two top names. You know what I mean? But there's a lot of different backs out there. Miles is one of them. Obviously, he's going to be one of the premier backs on the market. And I just don't think any of them are going to get paid the way that, Le'Veon Bell got paid, for example.
Yeah.
I don't think the market's going to be so real flush at running back, right? I don't think there's going to be big money thrown to running backs. Josh Jacobs just led the league last year, and he's the top guy on the market, and he might get paid, and everything will be affected off of that. So we'll see if a team really does pony up and give a running back big money, and that could affect the market. But I think there's so much to pick from. And then in the draft, you think about, there's always a deep class of running backs in the draft. Well, I don't think we need to worry, honestly. I don't think there's any worry. I think we'll add a body, and it won't be a guy that you can't rely on. They'll get a guy in there that they feel like they can rely on, just like they had last year with Miles Sanders. We all doubted it. We all thought this guy's injury prone. He's got an issue here. He's got an issue there. I think they're going to get what I do think they're going to look for, though, in a running back is pass catching ability. Miles Sanders regressed in that area since that first year he played. He was a very good pass catching back his first year in the league. And for some odd reason, he regressed. I think Kenny Gainwell has that ability, but I think their next guy, look for Jahmyr Gibbs in the draft. Josh Jacobs in free agency is a guy that obviously has that ability, and he's the best of the best, but someone like that who can catch 40 balls underneath and be a threat in the pass game just as much as the run game, because Miles Sanders was not great in that aspect. And I think they want a more reliable back on every down and sprinkle Kenny Gainwell in, but his size, his talent level is not an every down kind of player. So they need to look for that kind of back. And I think that's what they're going to go out and try to find, whether it's in the draft, free agency. I think they have to figure that out.
Yeah. And that's a good point. It's, to piggyback off of that is we do have the luxury of, you were in the Super Bowl last year. You have an insane offensive line, a great running attack paired with Jalen. So, maybe there's a running back that wants to come here to 1-year deal to up his value.
Yeah.
Maybe the market isn't there. So maybe it's one of those things where it's free agency happens, draft happens. A guy's still looking for a team in May, June. You could have it's not the same because LeGarrette Blount was kind of on the way out of his situation, but out on the tail end of his career. But something like that where it's like, okay, we have guys here that we could get, and they come here for a year, up their value. Evan Ingram did that in Jacksonville this year, tight end, playing in Doug Peterson's system, going off. James Bradbury paired with Darius Slay up his value. So I think, Bradbury, maybe didn't think that we get all the way to the Super Bowl, but I think he saw that there was a really good opportunity for him to ball out, and he did. So I think that's going to be really exciting to kind of see how that unfolds, and not just at the running back position. I think, a linebacker would come here, a D end, maybe you get a safety, some depth, guys like that.
You can never hang the curtain for a Howie Roseman offseason. He's looking for players the entire summer. I mean, we got CJ 2 weeks before the season started. The guy comes in, he's one of the best safeties in the league, and everyone was doubting him and the position switch. So you're going to see guys that see something special here. I keep mentioning Josh Jacobs because he went to Alabama with Jalen Hurts, and there's a relationship there. And Devontae Smith went to Alabama, and when the Eagles are starting to become that kind of team now with Jalen Hurts, that's similar to how the NBA is becoming, where it really is becoming about relationships and players talking on social media more and seeing what people are up to. And everyone saw those locker room celebrations. Everyone saw what the Eagles were about last year. So, and then, like you said, to see James Bradbury recoup his value from what he was, if there's no market, signing a 1-year deal for, an $8 to $10 million price tag for a year and get most of the money guaranteed, as long as you play your contract out and everything. I mean, if you get it guaranteed, you get it guaranteed. But those kinds of contracts, those 1-year hits, Howie Roseman can fit those under the cap. And if you are looking for a big lucrative deal and you don't find that in your first go around in free agency, there's absolutely opportunity when players are like, oh, they're going to go to that team to be on a contender. We're the contender now. We are that team. Ndamukong Suh and Linval Joseph came to Philly because they saw what we were doing in the regular season. So you just keep that door open, and I think they're going to find a guy that they're going to make a couple moves this year that you're like, man, I didn't think Howie had that up his sleeve with the cap and just in general, but now that we're a contending team and we have this quarterback and we have this aura about us, we have to capitalize on that, and we have to use that to our advantage. And I think it's going to happen naturally. So it's going to be very interesting to see.
Yeah. And lastly, combine, what positions are you looking for?
First and foremost, I'm looking at cornerback. In the past, I've had this theory and this philosophy where I don't want to pick cornerback early because young guys are exposed and it's often really difficult for them to build that confidence and be what they fully can be when they go into the league at that position specifically. But I think the Eagles have a great defense. I saw what guys like Sauce Gardner did last year and Tariq Woolen for the Seahawks. And I think throughout the draft, you can find corners. So there's a couple corners I want to look at and see what kind of value we can get, not only in the first round, but maybe later. I think they need to get younger at that position, maybe more imperative to get younger at that position and find talent at that position this year than there has been in a while, and maybe any position on the roster. O-line and D-line isn't like super fun to watch at the combine, so I'll just be watching the wide receivers as well. It's fun to watch. And some quarterbacks. I want to see quarterbacks rise up the board. Give me 4 in the first 9, and we get our pick at a top, 5 non-quarterback in the league.
Yeah.
So I would love that at that 10th pick to have all those guys. So please, quarterbacks show out. You got Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, Will Levis, and Anthony Richardson. Anthony Richardson's my favorite, so I want to see how he does at the combine, how fast they run, all that stuff, how they throw. So wide receivers and quarterbacks. And then, we just talked about it, running backs, seeing which running backs work out and what we can get, because realistically, Bijan Robinson, Jahmyr Gibbs are going to be hard for us to get. It's the other guys that could be big time
Yeah.
picks for us. So we got to see how they perform and see what they do. But it's going to be cool. I love the combine. I'll be out in LA during the combine, so we got to throw that on as some background.
Yeah, it will be. It will be.
I love me some combine NFL combine background stuff. So I'll be out there. I don't know. I think I come out there around this time every year, so I might have been out there last year for the combine too. But
It's possible. Yeah, it was last March.
it was a good time last time. I only had one hoodie in my suitcase. This time I have nothing but hoodies in my suitcase. No shorts, no t-shirts. Well, one t-shirt, but it's to be worn underneath a flannel. So I'm ready for the cold. It is not pleasant weather out in LA right now compared to what LA usually is, and I'm ready for it.
Yeah, I mean, at least you're kind of avoiding the rain. Actually, I talked to a guy at the gym this morning. Said it is 70 years old. He's been here for 60 years. Said this is by far the coldest winter ever in LA that he's experienced. So
yeah, dude, and it's been like weird weather out in Philly. Like it's been 50s and 60s way too early. So we're looking at a very odd shift in the climate. I need my aluminum foil hat for the theories that I'll be spouting out, but no, it should be fun, dude. It's going to be better weather than what it is out here. It's been kind of rainy out here too, so it'll be fun, and we'll do our thing. And once the drinks get to flowing and the good times get to happening, the weather's about a non-factor. So
it's a non-factor. Just going to go in there. It's like an Eagles playoff game. Just going out and just getting the W.
Exactly. Well, I'll be in that very kitchen and just quite the short amount of hours.
Yes, you will. Yes, you will. So yeah, you're coming out here. It'll be a good time. Maybe we pop on, do a quick stream one day. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. We can do it from the phone even. It'd be pretty cool.
Yeah.
But I'm bringing my GoPro out, so we're definitely gonna have to like get some content out there. Maybe just film some stuff on that, upload it. Possibilities are endless, but you guys will be seeing us, and we appreciate you tuning in. Yeah. So I got an early flight. It's going to be an early night, and I'm ready to rock.
Yeah, that's right. That's all we got. Yeah, fly Eagles fly, and we'll be out in LA soon.
Have a good week, guys.
All right.